Just so you know, in the previous video, I'm not telling you, by the way, to give up your dreams and of being a veterinarian or something like that. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm pointing out, though, that keep in mind that wages, or that the compensation will probably continue to dwindle as more and more people go into that field. So it's just supply and demand. Once again, that was the whole point of what I was saying, was that when you have a surplus of people, well, then prices should come down. They shouldn't be going up. Now, we're seeing that across other fields where prices keep going up, yet there's more and more supply than there's ever been. There's more and more quack-in-the-boxes than there has ever been. I've never seen this many quack-in-the-boxes. But as a result, we still see prices are increasing. Well, that's because the money isn't worth anything. You're not creating more. You're not creating more of the economy when you print money. You're just printing money. That's it. So, which segues into time and spending power. Okay, so remember what I said, that time is your one chief currency, right? It's why when and we can say that actually with perfect clarity, because if, let's say that I get a speeding ticket, right? I'm driving my normal operational speed, which is about 90 in the left lane, and some clown cop pulls me over and gives me a speeding ticket, right? And then let's say that Bezos is in his exotic car next to me, and he gets pulled over at the same time, right? And we both get tickets, and then we both go to court. And then let's say that the judge, for example, gives us both a fine of $200, right? Okay, am I punished equally? Well, no. Of course not. $200 is a lot more money to me than it is to someone like Bezos, right? So, I mean, the Bezos, the Bezai of the world, they're not. $200 is nothing. It costs them more money or more time to write the check than the $200 is worth, right? So, but to me, the $200 is worth more. So there's a relativity there, right? You understand? So when you print money, then you destroy spending power. Okay, and that's where this is going to go. So, by contrast, if let's say that the judge says, okay, both of you, me and Bezos, are both going to pick up trash by the side of the freeway for 1 hour. We are both now equally punished, technically, because the amount of time I lose 1 hour, so does he. He loses 1 hour as well. So it's complete even Steven, right? Because time is the great equalizer, so to speak, right? Because once it's gone, well, then all of this other stuff doesn't matter. I mean, like for real, think about it. Once your time is over, right? I mean, you go to the proverbial old man, right, and say, old man, what's the secret to life? What's the secret to success? You want the guru or something like that, right? And what does he do? He finds a big horse trough full of water and drowns you in it, right? And so you start fighting really heavily. Why? Because, well, nothing else really matters until you get another breath of air, right? It's just how it works. So time is super critical to you, okay? And then because of that, you're going to elect to spend your time in a fashion that is going to be at least somewhat profitable to you. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be profitable in terms of maybe dollars or gold or Bitcoin or whatever. It's going to be profitable in some other way. It could be an intangible way that it's profitable, but it's profitable to you, okay? Because value is subjective. So what you're doing, you're trying to maximize, since you're here, right? You're here in 5 cents reality along with all of the rest of us, for better or for worse, okay? But you have whatever time you have here, and it is finite, okay? So whether it's 1 day or 1 million years or 10 million years, at a certain point, all things come to an end. Okay, this is the second law of thermodynamics. It's just how it is. So your time is extremely valuable, and when you trade your time for any kind of other currency, it's a lateral exchange. You understand, it's an exchange, right? It's not. If how do I want to say this? If I hire you to dig a moat around my house, right? And I agree to pay. Let's see, we'll price this in dollars, and I agree to pay you $5,000 to dig this moat around my house. and you agree to do so, so you dig a moat around my house. You rent a track hoe or something like that. You dig a moat, and then I pay $5,000. Did you make $5,000? No. No, you didn't make $5,000. You lateraled. You exchanged X however much time, X amount of time. Let's say it took you 3 days to do that. Well, you took 3 days to do it, and so I gave you $5,000. You exchanged your time and your skill and your patience and your labor and so on. You exchanged your calories, okay, all of that in order to accomplish this goal around my house, right? Okay, so it's a lateral transition. It's not, you didn't make anything. You lateraled. Okay, you own your labor before somebody else owns it. If you don't own your labor before somebody else owns it, well, that's slavery technically. So anyway, so your spending power. Okay, well, when you trade your time for any kind of other currency, whatever it is, your goal is to maintain spending power, the maximum spending power you can get, right? You don't want it to devalue. You don't want it to constantly be eroding your spending power. You want your spending power to at least, bare minimum, stay even. It doesn't have to go up. Right? Like, you realize that one of the fastest ways to solve poverty is to stop stealing from poor people, right? That's one of the fastest ways to stop, to solve poverty, would be to stop stealing from poor people and then stop devaluing their currency. That's the quickest way to solve a lot of poverty. So you want your spending power to stay there. So now, how does that work actually? Well, you don't print a bunch of money out of nothing. Once again, that's the quickest way to do that. But it's omnipresent. It's been there for a long time. Again, it's one of these things that's way back here in this Fibonacci sequence, where if you solve that problem, then every other problem after that successively is going to be incorrect. And you have to correct a whole bunch of society altogether, because they're not used to it now. Now they're like, oh my God, I actually have to do, what do you mean I have to negotiate, and come up with something that's like, yeah, that's exactly right. So you want to keep your spending power. So that's this little section here, and it's a really easy concept. This is really easy to understand, right? I mean, if I'm losing you, if there's any specifics, feel free to ask. I'll do the best I can to answer them. But as far as like this idea, this is very simple to understand. And because I said that I would tear into the real estate thing, I really need to tear into this. So this is another thing that's been really annoying me the last 5 years. So the real estate scam. And oh my God, I don't even know where to begin almost. I'm going to start with the first part of this, which is just understanding that you don't want a nation of renters. You really don't. The United States, let me get a little bit patriotic here for you, kinda, okay? The United States of America, our country, okay, the country in which I was born and live here, okay, along with lots of other Americans, this country was never intended to have a bunch of people renting. The laws aren't set up for that. Even its lowercase laws, they're not really set up for people to not actually be a part of an ownership culture. There's this weird thing going out. There's this huge meme all over the place, and with the WEF pushing this, that says that you'll own nothing and be happy. That is simply antithetical to the very existence of the country. Okay, so I'm not trying to get all John Wayne about this, but I mean, you need to understand, it's actually rather critical that you want your kids, your young people, to actually purchase homes. Okay, there's a term called starter home, right? Those are your typical 322s in a normal neighborhood on a normal size lot. Okay, that's maybe 15,000 square feet. No, probably not even that. Probably like 10,000 square feet. Okay, not the house, the lot. By the way, don't fade out on me here. Okay, so what happens is those are called starter homes because they're usually designed, it's usually for younger people to get the idea of what it's like to own a home, because they've got to do maintenance and upkeep, and they've got to, make sure they go pressure wash the driveway. They've got, all these little things, in the wintertime or in the fall, rather, it's fall right now, it's the time of this recording, I have to go up on the roof and I have to blow all the pine needles off the roof and all that kind of stuff. Like, those are maintenance things. And the reason that you have starter homes for younger people is so that they learn that, and they also feel connected to the culture and connected to the country, because they own a piece of the country. They own a piece of the country in which they live, which means, that they care about it. You tend to care about something that you own, do you not? You don't really care about it so much if it's a rental car. If it's your car, you care about your car. You don't really care what happens to the rental car. It's a rental, why would you care? So this is what needs to be understood. You do not want a nation of renters, yet, all the time, for many, too many years, I've seen these scams, and they all follow the same pathology. It's absolutely horrible. Come to my class for $500. We're going to do a weekend seminar, and I'm going to teach you all the secrets that the rich people don't want you to know. Or I'm going to teach you cash flow strategies, and how to improve your monthly revenue and have mailbox money or passive income strategies. They have all the lingo down. They've got all the slick words down. They know exactly what buttons to push on you, and the reason they know those buttons is because they understand that they understand the idea of the conservation of energy. Your default setting as a human being, actually as an entity in time and space, your default setting is to conserve energy. That is the natural default. You don't go out and expend a bunch of energy and then not have some kind of return. Okay? You don't go hunt the deer, right, and burn all the calories to hunt the deer, unless the number of calories you're going to get back from the deer is going to be worth it, right? This is just kind of how it works. And ideally you want to get more calories than what you expended. So, and this is very simple math to understand, okay? So because your default setting is conservation of energy, you are naturally going to gravitate to that which is advertised to you or sold to you as the idea of, like, hey, get rich in real estate and then you don't have to do anything. You can sit on a beach and earn 20% with Hans Gruber. So you go to the class at the airport Marriott. You pay the $500, you go in, you can bring a friend for free. The class they teach you some very basic stuff that you could pretty much find almost anywhere. I could teach you all of it in about 2 hours. I'm not joking. It's not bragging if you can do it. I'm just telling you the truth. This is actually really simple stuff to understand. Teach you how to do this and everything, but it's basic, and it's just enough information. It's just enough information that you might be able to do something with it, but you're not exactly sure. But you're in luck, because while you're here for this weekend only, you can come to the retreat, the all expenses paid retreat, all expenses paid by you, and you pay the $5,000. Now you can part with $5,000, because I'm going to teach you how to get rich in real estate and sit on the beach, earn 20%, Hans Gruber, all that kind of stuff. This is the kind of thing that they do. Now they know statistically. Okay, what are statistics? Statistics are it's just the math. It's just they know how many people, if they get a room of 300 people in there, they know statistically they're going to get about 15 people go to that retreat and pay $5,000. Okay, they go to the retreat, let's say, or whatever the number is. I don't know exactly what the number is, but they know there's a percentage of people who are going to do this. Okay, this is just law of averages catching up. So they go to the retreat. The retreat, you get a 4-day, workshop, the whole bit, and it's all, all expenses paid. Again, all expenses paid by you, and then. Near the end, it's like, well, I don't know, man. I mean, this is a lot to take in, and I've never done this before. Well, yeah, because they know most people have never owned a business. Most people have they went to school, and then they got out of school, and they went to school, and then they got out of school, and they went to school, and then they got out of school, and then they went and found a company that will hire them, if they're lucky, and that's about it, right? I mean, or they found like 4 or 5 companies to hire them, and in succession, and then it's like, they don't know anything about startups. They don't know anything about the actual business climate, because business climates change, right? There is climate change right now in the business world. We're seeing the business world, implode. So You don't feel comfortable about it and everything, so but don't worry about it. Have I got a deal for you? For just a scant $50,000, you can take our private, coaching system where we will walk you through every single step of the way to make you super rich, where you can sit on a beach, earn 20%, Hans Group, and the whole thing. That has been played out so many times. I've seen this stuff, and I've seen people just pour money out of their wallets and write these big checks to do all this stuff. And the reality is, what's my time? The reality is, unfortunately, these things contribute to the overall destruction of the United States. There is no nice way of me putting that. It just is what it is, okay? That kind of stuff, what that does is that, if you buy a rental property, for example, right? Let's say you go buy a rental property. First of all, most people are paying way too, oh my God, for like 30 years, people have been paying these insane numbers for houses. These ridiculous numbers for these houses, because they want the passive income. They want the passive income strategy. They want to sit on a beach, do nothing, not understanding that, like, for every time you buy a rental property, you have to have a corresponding tenant, right? So, like, well, but banks don't want to lend everybody. Like, no, that's a function of Glass-Steagall, actually. Banks used to make money by lending money. Now banks make money just by doing carry trades. I mean, that's it. I mean, or they do investment banking, where they don't really actually care about any community and stuff, even though by law, yes, I know they're supposed to make some kind of loan and everything. Dude, come on, they don't do any of that. The reality is, in most banks, actually, if you actually find out the truth, most banks do not lend money to small businesses, even though they're required to by law. What they do is they give that money to a fund, and that fund is the one who does all these loans to small businesses, and it's crap. It's because it takes it off the books, they don't have to look bad. So. We'll go into the details of the hyper details of banking as we go, but what ends up happening is that you create this nation of renters, of younger people who have this disconnect. This is why you see people burning Portland down and not giving a shit about it. Well, why should they? It's not their community. It's not their country. What do they care? This is an actual problem. You can disagree with me all you want, but you better bring your A game if you're going to disagree with this one, because this is decades of actual experience talking, of watching this. I've done this. I've owned rental properties. I've owned apartment buildings. I've done all that stuff, and I want nothing to do with that, because I've seen what that does, and I want nothing to do with it. What I want people to do is actually own a piece of their country and feel as though they're actually part of it, because that's actually a lot of what's missing in terms of your social trust and what have you. A lot of that's what's missing, is that there isn't a connection that's happening. And more people, of course, think about it. We all know what happens once a neighborhood hits about 40-50% rental properties, right? Then all of a sudden the neighborhood goes like that, and it flips. What do you think happens on a macro level to an entire country? Well, what do you think happens? When all of a sudden, like 60% of people don't own any part of the country, they really stop caring what happens to the country. Just reality, okay? And the idea, like, well, but there's other ideas and everything. Yes, Horace Greeley, when he said, "Go west, young man," that was agricultural in a lot of cases, because that's what the U.S. is. The U.S. actually is a big powerhouse of agriculture. But if you were a young man back in, let's say, the early 1800s or mid 1800s, and you wanted to like own a house, right? So there's all these people I love these guys that say, like, you should have to own land in order to vote. Like, well, hold on a second here. How did you become a landowner back in the day? You went 5 miles west of town, and you found a piece of land that nobody else was using, and you fenced it off, and then you gave the county $3 to record it, and that was yours. And then you took the time and you built a dwelling. I didn't say anything about houselessness. There's a difference. How I look at homelessness and houselessness is a different thing to me. Homelessness means that you don't have any place to go. Houselessness means you don't have a dwelling, on said property. A little bit of a different story there. So, I mean, and you shouldn't have, in a country the size of the U.S. with the population it has, there shouldn't be any homelessness. This is not a Marxist rant. I'm straight telling you. I drive all over the country. I haul ass all over flavor country. I will promise you, there is no shortage of land in the U.S. for people to live. It's the question of a lot of this stuff is that it's government owned and what have you, and it creates this artificial idea of real estate, that real estate is worth more than it actually is. Land and real estate are supposed to be used by the people that live within the country. That's kind of how it works. You want that. That's actually really positive for your country because people then take it seriously. I will promise you that people vote differently when all of a sudden they have to pay for something out of their pocket. Would you agree? That's exactly how it works. So if you have to pay for something and it's like, oh, hey, great, you want to vote for this? But as soon as you vote for it, all of a sudden I'm going to show up and I'm going to say, hey, give me some money. Well, all of a sudden you're going to vote differently. You're going to treat everything differently, which is why, I mean, I hate to say this, but all of you people that are out there that are trying to hold out for the big bucks and squeeze every bloody penny out of people, in rents for these 322 shit boxes, go to hell. I mean, I can't say what I actually would say to you in person. I have to be a different person on this video, because if I said to you in person what I would say to you, I'll get kicked off the internet. Because you are fundamentally eroding the very fabric of the country that you claim that you love and are part of, and so forth. In other words, the very free market that you claim that you want to protect and the culture you want to protect, you're fundamentally destroying it by doing that. And it's just a fact. It's a psychological reality. Okay, it's a cause and effect. It is part of the physics aspect of this. That when people tend to own things, they tend to take care of them better. I'm not talking about the guys out there, the odd guy that has Cadillac hinge in his front yard. I'm not talking about that. Most people, I never knew what an HOA was. I'm younger Gen X. I never knew what an HOA was until about 5 years ago. No, it was more than that. It was about 10 years ago. 10 years ago was when I was confronted with an HOA. Before that, I had no clue what an HOA was. None. You know why? Because there weren't a whole lot of HOAs, because the majority of people owned homes, and so therefore they kind of took care of them. There wasn't any necessity for an HOA in the sense that now you have these weirdo Karens out running around with tape measures and yardsticks and shit, trying to make sure that your lawn isn't exactly 4 inches or something like. This is the kind of thing that happens when you have too many people that are renting and not owning. Now, I'm generalizing. I understand that. But suffice it to say, it's overall easier if people are actually able to own a piece of their own country. So when you've got younger people that are leaving these institutions that they probably shouldn't be attending in the first place because they're too expensive, the ROI is absolutely horrible across almost all sectors at this point. I mean, it really almost doesn't matter what you're going into field wise. I think you're overpaying, and when they get out, then you could say, but there's no such thing as overpriced. You're right. I said that there is no such thing as overpriced. There's no such thing as price gouging. There's no such thing as the prices of the houses being too high and everything. You're absolutely right about all that. That's largely because, well, right back here, we have printed money to the point of worthlessness, and we've created a situation that creates this sort of downward spiral of existence. It spirals everything off course. So if you want to fix that, well, then you either, one of two things. You can either fix this. Well, good luck with that. That's going to fix itself. That course correction is going to happen regardless, by the way. Okay, I mean, whether you, me, or anybody wants that, this course correction, this will fix itself. This will become so top-heavy and unruly that this will eventually fix itself. It's called a financial collapse. And then it will correct because the money isn't worth anything. But I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see that little blinking thing. Anyway, so but when you're overpaying for this stuff, and you can say, well, but you're not overpaying. Correct. How do I want to say that? If you're claiming that you're trying to make money with your money, right? The problem is that the money that you have is money you probably shouldn't have had in the first place. Because you're having to hypothecate it out of nothing from a banking standpoint. So most people, for example, let's use the real estate thing. Let me tie this off. If you went to let's say you saved $500,000 to buy a couple houses to rent them out, and you paid cash for all of them, that would be a different story. But that's not what's happening. It's not what's happening. What's happening is the money is hypothecated out of nothing. So you go to a bank, the bank says, is this your house? Yes, this is my house. And then most people, of course, will lie and say that it's owner occupied when it's not going to be. And then what happens is that they get a loan, and the money is created into it springs into existence. The money didn't exist until you signed the paperwork. So all of a sudden, that money is hypothecated. It's created out of nothing, and it shoves it in, so it creates even more inflation. It's the difference between doing something with cash, and I don't mean necessarily dollars, but I mean cash in the generic sense, in that there's no debt attached to it. There's a difference between doing something with cash as opposed to credit, and that is the fundamental difference. That's how it breaks down differently. So when you have people that are constantly trying to leverage up, well, you get this massive bubble. It's the bubble of all bubbles. One has to stand in awe of the size of the bubble. So it's almost as big as the bubble that the flat Earth people think we live under. That big dome that they keep talking about. No, I don't. Even as entertaining as that is, I don't believe it. So what ends up happening is that when you keep perpetuating that, you're actually ruining a lot of the same. You're causing a lot of the same problems that you think that you're solving. You're solving them maybe for you individually. Well, but anybody can. No, because you can flood any market. Remember? See, this is going to come back to you every single time. Can everybody go buy 10 rental properties and rent them out? No, because you would have to have you'd have to have 10 corresponding tenants for everyone to do that. It's just not possible. So that means that it comes down to like whoever the bank likes more. You're right back kind of where you started. You're right back, you understand, you're right back into the position of like, well, it's okay for me, but I don't care what happens to anybody else. Like, okay, well, I mean, you can do that, that's fine. This is perfectly psychotic, and I'm okay with you making that argument. But you then don't get to complain about the overall destruction of humanity. You don't get to complain about, oh my God, the country's going to hell in a handbasket, what are we going to all do? Like, no, shut up. Your words fall on deaf ears for me. Like, dude, no, look, you've brought all this stuff on yourself. So I mean, like, why would you complain to me? So no, take your complaints to someone else who gives a shit, because I don't. And that's really what ends up happening. Like, well, but crime, like, who cares? Dude, I mean, you're creating the circumstances that are pushing. Well, and I know there's a bunch of people out there that'll claim that, like, well, no, poverty doesn't cause crime. Like, yes and no. That's actually not 100% both directions. Okay, that's, if eventually when people stop caring, then they stop seeing it as a crime, because, like, well, that's just what happened. Again, this is an action reaction. Okay, it's how it works. I'm not making a moral judgment. Understand? I'm not. I'm telling you, when it comes down to life and death versus morality, we all know what people choose. Every single time. So that the goal is that you don't want to have a culture or society that puts people in a position where they're having to choose between life and death versus morality. Make sense?